everyone, and welcome. So, if you've ever built a React app, I'm willing to bet you've stumbled into the messy, messy world of managing state. Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on one of React's most powerful built-in tools for this exact problem, the Context API. So, here's the game plan. We're going to kick things off with a super common headache known as prop drilling. Then, we'll bring in the Context API as our hero. After that, we'll break down how it actually works, walk through a quick and easy code example, and wrap up by talking about when you should, and maybe shouldn't, reach for it. All right, let's dive right in. Before we can really appreciate the solution, we've got to feel the pain of the problem. And trust me, it's a problem that pretty much every single person who's written React has run into. Just picture it. You know the drill. You're building out your component tree. You've got some important piece of data and a top-level component. Maybe it's user info or a theme setting, and you need to get that data all the way down to a tiny button component buried like 5 levels deep. So what do? Well, you pass the prop to the first child component. That component then passes it to its child, which then passes it to its child. You see where this is going. The crazy part? Most of these components in the middle don't care about that data at all. They're just playing messenger. And man, does that get messy fast. This exact pattern actually has a name, prop drilling. It's that tedious process of threading props through layers and layers of components that have absolutely no use for them. It makes your code way harder to read, a pain to maintain, and forget about trying to refactor it later on. It's a nightmare. You know, this analogy is just perfect. It's totally inefficient, right? The kids in the middle of the class, they don't need to read the note, they're just part of the chain. Wouldn't it be so much easier if the teacher could just teleport that note directly to the kid in the back? Well, that's exactly what the Context API lets us do. It gives us that direct line of communication. It cuts out all those unnecessary middlemen. Let's see how it works. And this is the core idea, straight from the React docs themselves. You can think of it like creating a sort of global state that's only available to a specific part of your component tree. Any component living inside that tree can tap into that data directly. No more passing it down step by step. Now this slide right here really lays it all out. With prop drilling, all your components are tangled together. They're tightly coupled. They all have to know about the props they're passing, even if they don't use them. Refactoring, a total headache. But with context, your components are decoupled. That button way down at the bottom of the tree, it can get the data it needs, and the components above it don't even have to know it exists. This is a total game changer for keeping your code clean and easy to maintain. So what's the magic behind the curtain? How does this actually work? Well, it's surprisingly simple, really. It all boils down to just 3 main ideas you need to get your head around. Okay, here it is, the 3-step dance. First, you create the context. Think of this like setting up that special private communication channel. Second, you provide the context. You use a special component called a provider to wrap a section of your app and basically inject a value into that channel. And third, you consume the context. Now, any component inside that provider can use the use context hook to just reach up and grab the value. Create, provide, consume. That's pretty much it. Okay, theory is one thing, but seeing it in action makes it real. So let's walk through a super common use case. Managing a theme, like a light mode or a dark mode, across your whole app. First things first. With just one line of code, react.createContext, we create our context object. And see that light string we're passing in? That's a default value. It's what a component will get if it tries to use this context but can't find a provider above it in the tree. It's a nice little fallback. Next up, we wrap our application, or at least a part of it, with our theme context.provider and look closely at that value prop. This part is absolutely crucial. Here, we're explicitly saying, hey, every single component inside this provider now has access to the value dark. This new value completely overrides the light default we set a second ago. And finally, this is where the magic happens. Inside any child component, it doesn't matter how deeply nested it is, we just call the use context hook and we pass it our theme context. React does the heavy lifting, it looks up the component tree, finds the nearest provider, and hands us its value. So in this case, our theme variable will be dark. And just like that, no prop drilling required. One line of code gets the data exactly where it needs to go. How cool is that? Now, whenever you find a tool this powerful, it's super tempting to start using it for, well, everything. But that's not always the best move. So let's talk about where context is the perfect fit and maybe where you should reach for a different tool instead. Context is absolutely perfect for data that's kind of global for a big chunk of your app. Think about things that don't change all that often but need to be accessed from all over the place. The current theme, whether a user is logged in, app-wide settings, or the currently selected language. These are all prime-time use cases for the Context API. And here is the big but, the important warning. When a context value changes, every single component that's consuming that context is going to re-render. So if you're trying to manage state that updates super frequently, like, say, tracking the mouse position or complex form inputs, using context can trigger a whole cascade of unnecessary re-renders, and that can really slow your app down. For those high-frequency updates, you might be better off looking at other state management libraries. So there you have it, React's Context API. It's a really elegant solution to that frustrating problem of prop drilling, and it lets you share state cleanly and efficiently. Look, it's not a silver bullet for every state management problem you'll ever have, but for the right job, it is an absolutely essential tool in any React developer's toolkit. So the only question left is, what are you going to build with it? Thanks for joining me.